Hello, I would like to introduce you to a good friend of mine, someone I've known for many years. His name is John D. Liu, and he is an international filmmaker who's based in Beijing, in China. John has made several films on restoring ecosystems around the world. The one that is the most recognized and probably had the most impact is the film on the restoration of the Loess Plateau in China. And this is quite a spectacular film on one of the best examples of how to regenerate ecosystems. The Loess Plateau was essentially a man-made eroded desert. Previously, it was actually one of the birthplaces of the great civilizations on our planet. However, it was unsustainable land use that turned this into a dusty desert. And what this film shows is that with the right attitudes, the right funding, you can regenerate these incredibly degraded ecosystems in a few short years. It's absolutely spectacular. John has now taken this into what I call a great global vision now about regenerating degraded ecosystems on every arable continent. And he's founded the ecosystem restoration camps, or they were ecosystem restoration camps when John first told us about it, and actually took Ronnie Cummings, Ursi, and I to one of the first camps in Spain. So, John, I'll hand it over to you, and if you want to tell everybody about what you're doing and what I think is one of the great global movements on our planet.
Well, I would call it now ecosystem restoration camps and communities. The website and the name has more or less been changed to ecosystem restoration communities, but I think it's sometimes a reach to make it into like an eco village, but we can all immediately make a camp. And we can go camping, and when we go camping, we can do restoration. So I think ecosystem restoration camps and communities, and I would all recommend that you go to the website, ecosystemrestorationcommunities.org, and it also works with ecosystemrestorationcamps.org. And when you get there, you find out that all over the world, we now have 65 of these camps and communities around the world. And what we're seeing is that, as Andre said, long ago, 30 years ago, I saw that it was possible to rehabilitate large-scale damaged ecosystems. And I also saw that it was people who did it. And so it's not about policy, it's about people understanding and acting. So if we choose to do this, we can do it. And if we don't, we're just going to wait around for, I don't know, magic or the powers that be to decide that they're going to do this. But it's people who suffer if we don't, because we're seeing how the climate is changing. We're seeing how this is affecting flooding, droughts, mudslides, wildfires. I mean, we are having fire tornadoes. We're having multiple increases in intensity and frequency of hurricanes. And we're having many people who are fleeing their homes and can no longer live there. And we're having wars. So what we've sort of seen now is that it's possible to come together and create the social infrastructure that's necessary to protect the community. And if we do that, then everything is in place. And if everything it's fine. We can all go have dinner together, and we can play volleyball and have a beautiful communal garden that becomes a botanical sanctuary, and we can help each other to learn and care for one another. But if things go south, we can have the infrastructure necessary to protect ourselves and our families and our communities. And I think this is what we need to understand, that the degree of danger, the degree of risk is increasing. And I used to tell people, we have to hurry up and get ready so that when the crisis comes, we will, we'll be prepared. Well, I'd say the crisis is upon us, and we need to act with even more urgency than before. And we have to do this. And if we're lucky enough to be in places where there's still water or there's soil fertility and productivity, that's great. But if we're in places where there's not this, we can help each other to restore these functions, and that will change the course of human civilization.
Yeah, and you talk about what I love is about camps and community is this is a way of empowering people to be the agents of change. At the moment, people feel so overwhelmed with the multiple crises and they go, where do I start? What can I do? And so they sort of shut off. This is a way of saying, look, you don't need to do anything. Just come to one of the camps. You can be part of a community of like-minded people, and you can be, essentially the agent of change and make a difference. And it doesn't take much. You don't need to have a major degree. You just got to be there. And I think the other thing I saw very much is this wonderful sense of camaraderie when people go there, being part of a group of like-minded people, meeting new friends, and seeing the results that you can, really start regenerating these degraded systems.
Yeah, and I think what's especially important is to realize that alone, as individuals, we just can't do it. So if we're going to succeed, we're going to do it together as a species on a planetary scale. So this is not only that we have to work locally, we have to work locally, but we have to work simultaneously all over the world, because we don't have 50 or 100 years to make this transition. We need to transform human civilization as quickly as possible to understand that the biology has, over evolutionary time, self-organized to hold the moisture close to the earth and to not allow the surface temperatures to increase, that causing thermic drafts to drive the moisture into the upper atmosphere. And what's happening is the biology is affecting the physics. And what we see is, over evolutionary time, the biology self-organized and self-replicated to maintain functional ecosystems. And over human history, through ignorance and greed, we have disrupted those functional systems. But what was shown in the Chinese Loess Plateau is that it's possible to rehabilitate large-scale degraded landscapes, including landscapes that have been degraded over long historical time and over vast areas. And so this is exactly what we need to understand and do. It is the paradigm shift that determines whether we survive and become sustainable, or whether we continue to imagine that we're going to get a different result if we continue to do the same things that are causing all of these collapsing when we think about this, we have to realize, like, you're not going to get a different result because we understand what's happening. We understand that you have to have communities because they make mineral nutrients bioavailable to plants and then to animals. And if we don't have those things, we don't have fertility in soil. And no amount of chemical things are going to help us in that regard, because it's not self-replicating. It's constantly being applied again and again and again, and it's not nutrient rich and it's not healthy. So we want organic, we want biodynamic, we want healthy, dense, nutrient dense food. And we don't want half of it wasted. We want it all to feed the people. It's not a commodity. It's not about how much money you make. It's feeding the people. When did food become a commodity? It's a right. Everyone has the right to eat. No, you can't say you don't have any money, so die in the street. That's horrible. So let's not do that. And if we start with communities and come together, we can engage people from all over and engage the marginalized. I think when I've started thinking about what is and doing Tai Chi and Qigong, there's all this understanding that the energy flows through us when we're alive. And this energy is the same energy that flows through the universe for all time. And to have millions or hundreds of millions or even billions of people who are marginalized and they're alive, but they're struggling to survive, and their energy is not flowing into conscious human endeavor. If we can build the social infrastructures, communal gardens, that where they're curated by master gardeners, so all people can go to the communal garden and learn how to become a master gardener, and then make more communal gardens until the whole planet is covered with the most beautiful gardens. And part of that is for ecological function, because we start to understand that the closed canopy creates a microclimate and interrupts the solar radiation so it doesn't directly hit the earth. And over evolutionary time, if you think about this, many of the places that we're now using annual cropping over vast areas, for millions and hundreds of millions of years, the solar radiation never hit the ground. It was interrupted. If it was a climax equilibrium, the highest trees we see are more than 400 feet high. And so that microclimate was protecting the system. Yep. And when every year we plow it up, exposing the soil directly to solar radiation, what do we expect is going to happen? Those are quite serious solar rays. I mean, if UV radiation is what we use to sterilize the fruit, we put it through a UV filter and expose it to UV radiation so that we kill all the microbes on the fruit, so we can ship the microbes to the other side of the world without shipping, ship the fruit all over the world without shipping the microbes. But if we're just doing it to the soil, we're sterilizing the soil before we've grown anything. And of course, we're also expressing early succession pioneer species, like going back to the beginning of evolution every year. And evolutionary succession built a climax that had functional systems with functional hydrology, functional soil, and amazing biodiversity, and total colonization of the planet by biological life. So if we're not noticing that the activities that we're doing with industrialization, mass urbanization, urban sprawl, and industrial agriculture is basically turning the Earth back to an early succession with much less biology, then we better go think about it. Go meditate, come and have a conversation with me. I'll tell you all about that stuff. And when we all understand that, then we can act together with a shared intention to make sure that we can all, and the only way to do it is together. We can't do it individually, so we have to do it together. So that's what the ecosystem restoration camps and communities is about.
And John, you've raised a really important issue here when we start talking about ecosystem restoration, camps and communities regenerating ecologies, but we're also talking about our climate. We're in a climate crisis at the moment, and the whole mantra is about CO2, drawing it down. But we have very good evidence, science showing that when you clear an ecosystem, the temperature goes up 5, 6, 7, even 20 degrees above what it was. The canopy cools it. The evidence also shows that as we start regenerating these ecosystems, covering the ground, even just as grasslands or trees and canopies, depending on the climate, we can reduce that temperature by many degrees, 2, 3, 4, 5. And considering that the planet
Actually,
is one degree warmer, by regenerating, we can actually bring the climate down so much faster than any other method. So, John, yeah.
Andre, I have a paper in my academia page called The Great Green Wall of China. I went out there with the Chinese Academy of Sciences to the Taklamakan Desert. They were measuring the temperatures. They built a shelter belt of vegetation along a highway directly through the second largest shifting sand desert in the world, 426 kilometers through this desert. In July, at noon, on the sand, exposed sand, the temperature was 70 degrees centigrade. This is 158 degrees Fahrenheit. And below the shelter belt, it was 25 degrees centigrade, or approximately 75 degrees Fahrenheit. This is 45 degrees centigrade temperature differential. So when we start to understand the scale of this, you can easily find 15, 20 degrees differences in Africa. Anywhere you go, just to point the thermometer at the ground in exposed soil and then go under a tree and you'll see it. It's 20 degrees, 25 degrees easily. So yeah, we can do these things, and we have to do these things. We have to understand these things, and we have to realize that we have to create this culture of collaboration, mass collaboration. We have to have collaborative inquiry for collective intelligence. We can't, it's not a specialized understanding that like a few experts need to have. This is every child can understand these things. In fact, I've found that the children understand it better because their minds are clear. They're not mixed up with all kinds of prejudice and other ideas. They just look at it and go, "Oh, I understand that. That's of course." So, we all need to not be childish, but to be childlike and understand that, well, it's true. And if when it's true, that's more important than whatever you believe. You can believe whatever you want, but it's not a belief system to understand that the biology is affecting the physics. And you just have to understand
it. Yeah. Look, you're absolutely right there, John. And I think one of the things to me to bring across to people, a very simple concept, is that one tree, because of the what we call the evaporative cooling, is the equivalent of 2 air conditioners to get that simple meme across. And then if we scale it up, for instance, and start making food forests, we can actually be feeding the world with healthy food and regenerating the climate and regenerating our communities. And this to me is exactly what is happening with your project on every
Well,
continent.
yeah, they're not my it's not my project. It belongs to everybody. We have to act
Yeah.
and work as a species on a planetary scale. This is not about institution building. This is about what we understand and what we do. And it doesn't matter what affiliation or how, those things don't matter. What matters is that we do it. And when we understand that we can bring back stream flows. So if you look at areas where it used to have springs, it used to have lakes, it used to have constant perennial stream flows. But now the streams are intermittent, they're ephemeral. So during the rainy season, it will flow, but it'll be like a lot, it'll flow. And then it's dry, in a couple of days after the rainfall. That's not normal. That's a description of a dysfunctional hydrological system. And when you understand that, and you see it once and you go, oh, that's a dysfunctional ecosystem. Don't ever look at that and say, oh, that's the way it is. That's the way it is now, because many generations of people failed to understand how this works. And when you have organic layers, so you have the lithosphere is covered by the pedosphere. So the geologic materials on top of them are the bodies of all the living things that have ever lived. When they die, they begin to deteriorate. Our bodies as well. All life does this. And it mixes with the geologic materials. And then you have this living soils. And that's where you calculate the percentages of organic material. And when you understand that this organic material is the habitat for all sorts of microbes and insects and small mammals and worms, all of these things are there. And when they're there, they exude different kinds of exudates, which hold the soils together. And that it's porous and the water can infiltrate and be retained, and then it slowly filters through this. And that's why the water is cleaned through these things. It's a filtering process, and it's mineralizing the water. It's alive. And if you go look at a sewage system, or go out here, and I'm in New York at the Climate Week, if you go out there and you look at the rain going down the storm sewer, it's toxic. It's got all this waste, pollution. We need to understand that these systems are holistic. They're not partial. We can understand them and we can study them. And when we study them, we should study them together so that we all come to the same conclusion, because you can't come to another conclusion. That you have to you have to join together and learn this. And when we understand this, we can organize our communities and our camps to restore them. And there's nothing more valuable than restoring these systems to functionality. That's not only the basis of health, that's the basis of wealth. And ultimately, that's the basis of life on Earth.
John, once again, you're absolutely right. What I meant before when I said about your project, what I meant is this is actually your great vision. And I think that's the really important thing. And there's a lot of people involved. And, just to let people know that I'm one of the people on the advisory committee, and you know, and we've been approving camps all around the world. But also, when you talk about building a committee, you're one of our original Regeneration International steering committee members, right from the founding days. You've been involved. So, we have these communities and networks where we support each other because we see the value of what we do. And I think that is a really important way that those of us who are like-minded, we can be working together to build a better planet for all of us.
I think things are growing rapidly now. So I feel like in the past, maybe it was also that I'm changing. I mean, I've turned 70 and I feel a bit older. But I think I was anxious and nervous and wanted people to listen. And I was trying too hard. And I think now I just feel like, well, if you don't listen to this, you're you're gonna face the consequences. We all need to learn this, and we need to be very, very clear that this is serious, that it's essentially life or death for us. And we are gonna die, but let's not go there before we need to, and let's have a really good time while we're alive. And so we want to cool the planet. We want to have lovely clean air, clean water, fertile soils, and beautiful biodiversity. And we want to build infrastructure that's simple and that also is biodegradable and doesn't have any toxic substances in it. And we can all do that. We can all learn that and do that together. And we can make sure that this is not just for elite people, that life is for all life, not only all human beings, but all living things. And that we live in symbiosis with the plants and animals and the insects and the microbes. So we need all of these. You can't take something out of the system and have it be fully functional.
Look, I think what for me, what is the really strong message here? Everybody feels overwhelmed with all the bad news, but you know, what we're talking about is some of the really good news stories, and it's not just a theory; it's being done. It's being scaled up on every continent, and you've got this movement which is changing. So it's more than just hope. It's happening. We're making a difference. And I think the really important thing here now is to say, you know, there's no charge for this. You're welcome. Just be yourself. Just come. It doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. We want you to be part of this great movement of change, and we just keep on building it.
Yeah, I think yes, and we need to consider economics in this, because we've been acting as if wealth is coming from buying and selling things, or that somehow wealth is coming from speculating between the cost and price of things, or from interest-bearing debt. But speculation between the cost and price and interest-bearing debt, these are concepts. Nothing actually happens except that some percentages of money flow to small minorities, and other people are disadvantaged. That's all that happens with those. And on the other side, you have things which are bought and sold, goods and services. But this is also seemingly imagining that the purpose of life is to go shopping, or that we're all workers, that like we're human beings. We're sentient beings on the only planet we know that has an oxygenated atmosphere and a fresh water system and amazing biodiversity. We're in a very, it's miraculous. And we should be in awe of that and realize that each individual who's alive today is not only related to every other human being, but is a representation of all life since the beginning of time. That's what it says in our DNA. We have photosynthetic DNA. We have a reptilian brain that we was before we got a frontal cortex. We know a lot about all of these things. And so we need to understand that we're not here to go shopping. We're not here to have power over other people. We're not here to outcompete others and make some people miserable and other people egregiously or, obscenely wealthy. We're here to live and to have some kind of authenticity and live really well. And we want everyone to live well. So if we all share, we can all live well. If we all share, we all have everything, actually.
That's one of the reasons I love Bhutan. I used to go there a lot when I was the president of iFarm Organics International to help them with their transition to 100% organic country. And there they have the concept of, instead of, gross domestic product, it's gross national happiness. The outcome of everything we do is to ensure that all species have well-being, not just us as this elite species that's got the right to destroy the planet. We are, like you're saying, we are part of an ecology. We live in symbiosis with all these other sentient beings, and we want to ensure that they have well-being. And if they have well-being, we have well-being. And I think it's a really important way to look at how we deal with the planet and, with all the other living entities on our planet.
Yeah, I think it's in China to live in interesting times
Yes.
is not necessarily the greatest thing, but if we live in interesting times.
Mm.
And so we're forced to realize that we're facing these things. We can't put our head in the sand and ignore that human actions are causing massive changes to the climate. But we also can't ignore that we know how to re-regulate the hydrological cycle. We know how to massively increase the organic percentages in soils. And we know how to create botanical sanctuaries and protect and save the most endangered species on the planet. And we have to understand that this is more valuable than buying and selling things. And just because some people are walking around in suits talking about how much money they have, and that, we don't have to listen to that. We don't have to take it. We have to just say, hey, wait a minute. You think that's more important than breathing or clean water or healthy food? You think having cancer and all these chemicals and pollutants and plastic waste all around is going to help us? That's wealth to you? That's ridiculous. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about how we can create and live the change we want to have on the earth.
Yeah.
So that's what the ecosystem restoration camps and communities can do. We can all come together, we can work together, play together, and we can ensure that the next generations have functional ecosystems. That's the vision.
And there's another Chinese saying that I love, and that is that the longest journey starts with a single step. And for me, you know, the ecosystem restoration camps and community is more than a single step. You know, there's quite a few steps that have started. And, you know, this journey, in many ways, it's actually a revolution and a very positive one for our planet. And so I'd just like to basically, you, we'll, we'll close up now, but just to explain a little bit about where it's going and, you know, what's happening on all our arable continents.
The camps that I'm really excited about, there's one in Appalachia, 7,000, I'm sorry, Appalachia. And if I don't say Appalachia, you can throw an apple at me. Just remember Appalachia. Anyway, Appalachian Renewal is 7,000 acres. And imagine if we can, does anybody know what Camp Hill is? If you don't know what Camp Hill is, go study Camp Hill. And imagine residential communities for special needs individuals. It's like a monastery, but without a dogma, without religious overtones, but you know, like a non-sectarian monastery in service. And imagine communal gardens, community kitchens, cultural stages, creator spaces, co-working environments. And imagine only bicycle trails, hiking trails, and horse trails through the Appalachian Mountains. And imagine memorial forests where people are buried and their descendants can walk a beautiful path through a larger and larger and larger perennial forest protected in perpetuity because their ancestors are buried there. And more people and all of us will walk that path, actually. So think about this and think about, like, would you rather have a stone? You ever seen the stone cemeteries in New York or, you know, all over the world? They're looking kind of sad. Let's all walk through the memorial garden, the memorial forests. Let's have botanical sanctuaries. Let's do that in Somalia, in Egypt, in Kenya, in Guatemala, in Brazil, in Mexico, in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in Malaysia. Let's do it in India. Let's do it all over the world. And we don't need to ask permission to do this. We just have to do it. We have to choose it. And every day we can have 3 meals a day. And every day we can have music on the stage. Well, we can have movie night. We can have theater. We can have volleyball. We can, you know, whatever we want. We can go swimming. We can all study with Wim Hof and jump into the freezing river. We can do whatever we want, but we better restore the biodiversity, the biomass, and the accumulated organic matter on the planet, because that means we're going to survive. So ecosystem restoration camps and communities allows us all to be empowered to do this. We don't need further permission. We need to work out. There's a lot we need to work out. Can we use community land trusts and all collectively own the land? And yeah, sometimes some things are going to happen and somebody's going to have to leave. can we have a party? And can the person who's worked there for years and leave, and we give him equity so that he or she doesn't leave with nothing, but is rewarded for the years of service. But anyone who has to leave can't bring down the community. It's not about speculating in real estate and you're going to flip a house and then somebody that doesn't have any connection to the community is going to move in. It's everybody's part of the community and everyone's going to take care of everyone. And let's have childcare and care for the elderly together. How about those ideas? How about what do we want? How do we want to live? Do we really think that we're better off if we work in a cubicle buying and selling junk that's coming from all over the world in container ships? Let's forget about all that and do what needs to be done at this time. And I mean, I'm seeing this in China. I'm seeing this in Africa. I'm seeing this in the United States. I'm seeing this in Europe. I'm seeing this in Mexico. I'm seeing this in South America. Everywhere in the world, people who are thinking about this can imagine such a thing. And we have to stop looking at all the reasons that we can't do this and think like, what do we need to do to make this a reality? And it's already happening. And the places where it's happening, they're having night and they're playing volleyball and they're going swimming.
Yeah, John, I think that that's the really key word. It's already happening. And I think another really important thing is that in terms of how we regenerate these ecosystems, we actually know that. We don't need to invent something or waste millions on more research and have another study. We just need people to get out there and do it. It's being done. We just need more of it being done. And, what I really want to say here, and thank you for this, John, because you had a vision and it's now turned into a global movement. That's very rare. And, that's a great achievement, not just to have the vision, but to make it happen. And now there's thousands of people actively involved in this vision to build a better planet for all of us. So on this, I just want to close now and say, look, thank you, John. I really do appreciate what you're doing. For us in Regeneration International, we want to continue to build the close links between our organizations so that we have a whole planet that we need to regenerate, and that regeneration has started. So thank you very much, John.
Right back at you, Andre, and for decades of service in the organic movement and first in IFOAM and now in Regeneration International. It's wonderful. And it's a privilege. And it's also a joy to collaborate on these things.
John, that's exactly right. It's a privilege and a joy. And you think the people we've got to meet, the friendships we've made, this is, in the end, it's not about money. It's not about fame or fortune. It's about this joy of like-minded people. And we actually feel our short time on this planet, we're making a difference.
I think it's a good moment to mention Ronnie Cumming because, he passed and it was a loss, but it was a gain to have known him. And every time I ever saw him or met him, it made me happy. And that's such a wonderful legacy.
I have to say exactly the same with Ronnie. He was in the end one of my closest friends. We were in contact probably nearly every day, and for me, it's a huge loss. And at the moment, actually, I'm finishing off his last book, and
Mm.
in that way, you know, the whole issue of regenerating landscapes and building agroforestry systems, and how that can actually make a bigger difference to the climate than just concentrating on CO2. And Ronnie, as you know, he was a big fan of what you did as well. And we visited, you hosted us to the camp in Spain quite a few years ago as this idea was building. And I know Ronnie also, hosted um, a camp at our, Via Organica Ranch in Mexico. So he really loved what you were doing as well. So um, yeah, it, as you say, it was a privilege that we actually got to know him, and for me, I learned a lot about how to build a movement from him. He was very good that way, and he's probably one of the significant reasons why the whole regeneration movement went from virtually nothing when we started it, and to now it's a huge global movement in the news every day. And in part is the way that he brought people together to do it. He's the great facilitator.
Yeah, I think we all need to understand that each of us needs to go from me to we, that
Yeah,
it really has to be a collaborative effort on a planetary scale. We have to act as a species on a planetary scale. And if we do that, we're really getting back to our like roots of humanity. We're good at being social creatures. We're and if we don't do that, if we act like I want more for myself, we're not helping ourselves. The what's good for the majority is good for the individual as well. So we need to work for the common good, for the good of all. So this is what and we need to do what needs to be done. A lot of people are looking for things to do and they want to do the strange and exotic and so on. We just need to do what needs to be done. And then we're going to be really happy because we've done what needs to be done. And then we can rest and we can have a really good dinner
yeah,
and we can make sure that it's organic and biodynamic and wonderful. And we don't have to go and buy it in a supermarket. We can work together in a community garden and build imagine beautiful food storage facilities for the whole community. We can do this. What's stopping us from building food storage facilities for the entire community? All surplus food goes there. We can't have a famine. Nobody can go hungry. We'll take care of everybody. We don't have to buy boxes of processed food. We have real food,
exactly. And I think that's the issue here, that there's no shortage of food. It's just really terrible food distribution and food production systems that are grossly unfair. So on one area, you've got the wealthiest countries that have an obesity epidemic. In another area, we've got around a billion people who are food insecure, and then another billion who get enough empty calories, but they're not actually getting enough nutrition to stay healthy. And you know that is
I,
purely because, not that we don't have enough food, we have an incredibly unjust system that's based on profit.
yeah. Well, we don't have to. I mean, if we can start, we started in the 70s making co-ops,
Yeah,
and the co-ops work very well. So let's go back to the co-ops, but also let's do more than that. We can do more than that. We can just basically feed everybody and make food a right. And so if we do this, then we'll have healthy people who can do work.
yeah.
Then they can do things because they're not unhealthy.
And can I say the other thing too is that the work itself is a pleasure and a health. The getting out there, the exercise of gardening and planting and picking fruit, making food, that in itself is just so healthy for you, physically, for your well-being. And I think that's the other really important part of this when we're talking about well-being.
Well, and also each of the camps and communities has to have several bands or orchestras,
Yeah.
so that we have jazz and we have folk and we have classical music and we have, whatever,
So
because,
I'll go in there and be rock and blues.
okay, all right.
Bring my guitar and keyboards.
So we need that. And everybody needs a stage. Everybody needs to hear the applause and be honored and celebrated for their lives. And so we can do that. We can make everything the way we really want it to be. Why don't we just do that? I think that's what I imagine now. Like, okay, we don't like plastics. Okay, let's not have any plastics. Let's make ceramic bowls and make our own furniture, not have any of this manufactured stuff. And our grandchildren will sit on the same chairs and eat off the same tables that we did. And they'll go, look, my grandfather sat here. How nice is that? That's wonderful.
You see the furniture around me, that's my grandparents. I have that, and I've got no need to buy any. And I love the fact that that it is my grandparents, and it's a family. There's family and history there. So, John, we'll end it here. We'll finish by saying I just enjoy your vision, your sense of inspiring and inspiration, and just what we will do periodically is touch base and give people updates on this wonderful project that is making a difference to the whole planet.
We need to help places which are really in need. So imagine in Guatemala or Honduras or in these kinds of places, if we restore those landscapes and help the local communities to feed themselves and grow beautiful places and create education and engagement for everyone, and they're healthy and wealthy, they're not going to migrate.
Exactly.
And
exactly
in Africa, if we can go and we can help all the people to find their way forward and help them to learn about restoration, they won't need to migrate. They won't need to flee. They'll be able to stay where they are. And, some of us also want to go places and we can go all over the world, training and working in ecosystem restoration all over the world. My experience with this is you'll never be, you'll always have something to do. You will never not be busy if you want to restore the earth, because there's plenty to do.
Yeah, exactly right. There's plenty to do, but what I really like the fact is it started. So, John, thank you very much, and I look forward to talking with you again.
My pleasure. Thank you, Andre. And anytime, I'm at your service.
Imagine you're standing in a field, your bare feet in the soil, your eyes closed and the rain lightly falling on your shoulders. You feel part of nature and not separate from it. Your eco-anxiety falls away, knowing that you are here, actively restoring the land. You are part of the solution, making a real and measurable difference to all life on Earth. You exhale and smile, filled with hope for a better future. This is not a dream. In almost 30 countries across 6 continents, communities are coming together to revive life-supporting ecosystems on a planetary scale and introduce ways for humans to thrive with nature on Earth. Restoring ecosystems creates a world of abundance with a positive and direct impact on all our lives. Ecosystem restoration communities is a global movement of everyday people who are working together to reverse ecological destruction, returning nutrients to the soil, and restoring rich biodiversity and water systems. We are creating food security and improving local livelihoods. We are supported by the world's leading experts, and we can inspire millions at home and in communities across the globe to take on this great work of our time. We invite you to join our mighty movement of Earth Restorers and help create the world you want to live in.
Welcome to India, to Kerala, one of my favorite states in India. It's one of the wonderful, most tropical states with fruits and spices and lots of other tropical plants. And I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine, Jacob Jose from PDS Organic Spices in Kerala. And their story is one of the great inspiring stories in regenerative organic agriculture. They're continuing a tradition that goes back for thousands of years. Kerala is the home of spices like cardamom and pepper, and for thousands of years they were trading with Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt and the Romans and the Arabs, and finally to Europe with the British and the Dutch and the Portuguese and others. The story here, where it is very inspiring, is that they're working with marginal smallholders, some of the lowest socioeconomic groups of farmers in the world, and ensuring that they get a fair price, a good standard of living, and at the same time they are also regenerating the environment and regenerating the community. So Jacob, welcome, and I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Andre, for your nice introduction. Good day to all. Myself, Jacob Jose, and Jose you can pronounce in English and Jose in other languages. I'm from the western part of in Kerala state in India. Kerala is the southernmost state in India. And as Andre said, we have a rich heritage of spices trade with some of the ancient civilizations in the world, like the Babylonians, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Arabs, and later to the Europeans. And this place, the Western Ghats, is the home of the birthplace of some of the most important spices like pepper, turmeric, cardamom, etc. And this is the story of organic spices and organic spices farmers from this region. I represent an organization named the Pyramid Development Society. Pyramid is the name of this particular village where this organization is situated. And Pyramid Development Society, or rather known as PDS, is one of the largest NGO, non-governmental organizations from the southern part of India, and it was established in the year 1980. And the mission of the organization is empowerment of village community, especially the marginal community, towards the sustainable development by conserving and enhancing the local resources in order to have the fullness of life. And the sustainability of the Western Ghats ecosystem is one of its prime objective towards achieving its mission. So as I said, the organization was established in 1980. At that time, the intense industrialized agriculture revolution called the Green Revolution was at its peak in our region and generally in India. So all the scientists and agriculturalists were advising the farmers to apply more and more chemical fertilizers and pesticides to get more yield. The large-scale farmers were able to reap the benefit of this industrialization in agriculture. But as we know, in a country like India, more than 80% of the farmers are small and marginal farmers who are contributing to more than 50% of the country's food production. They were left behind in the scene due to their lack of resources and unavailability of the technical knowledge about this industrialization. Also, the imprudent use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers cause severe damages in the sensitive agro ecosystem of the regions like Western Ghats. So, PDS has foreseen this unsustainability of the green revolution at that time itself. So, in order to address the concerns of local food security, social and ecological issues, PDS has envisaged a holistic approach in the region. And the solution we found was regenerative organic agriculture, which aims to restore the farming ecosystem and soil health to improve the productivity in order to create sustainable food systems. So these are the peculiarities of the Western Ghats agriculture system. First of all, this is a hilly area and the terrain is highly slopy. And the Western Ghats is one of the topmost biodiversity hotspot in the world. And 90% of the farmers here are small and marginal farmers who are cultivating spices like pepper, ginger, cardamom, nutmeg, etc. And there are some coffee farmers and tea is there, then rubber like that. Then this area is highly vulnerable to the effects of climate change like droughts, soil erosion, landslides, and the resultant soil acidity. So PDS promoted regenerative agriculture practices in harmony with the agroclimatic conditions in this particular region. And this is a philosophy of Pyramid Development Society that they may have life and have it abundantly. It's taken from the Holy Bible, John 10:10. So we know that in most of the world's languages, organic farming is called life farming. Even in most of the Indian languages, including my native languages, it is called Jaiva Krishi. Jaiva means life and Krishi means farming. So the life is an uh, important concept in the farming, in the organic farming. So, as a result of Pyramid Development Society's activities, by mid 80s, we could able to gather a group of around 250 to 300 farmers. So, PDS established the PDS Organic Spices Unit to aggregate this group of small farmers. And again, the problem with the sustainable price there persists. So, in order to address that, we certified that farmers in order to align with the international organic movement, and we connect this group of farmers with the international organic market. Thereby, the farmers were able to get a fair price for their produce. And there we started a phase of localization. Localization means connecting the global customers with the genuine local producers. We are working with three T's as our core principles. That is trust, traceability, and transparency. So this traceability for us, this traceability is not a one-sided one. We know that as per the international food safety and food security laws, the consumer has to know where their food are coming from, who are the producers of their food. But that is, we consider that is a one-sided approach. For us, the producers also has the right to know who is consuming their produce and who is purchasing their produce and at what price the producers are being purchased. We consider that as an important part, and we consider the traceability as a two-way communication tool. And the transparency and trust is also based on that two-way communication between the customers and the producers. And this is PDS Organic Spices is now. We are one of the topmost exporter of organic spices from India since 1998. And we are working with around 2,500 small and marginal organic farmers from this region, Idukki district region, who are cultivating spices like pepper, ginger, turmeric, clove, nutmeg, cardamom, etc. And we have a well-established internal control farm extension system and research and development wing in order to support these small and marginal farmers. And we have almost all the major international organic quality certifications like Indian Organic, European Union, Japan, Korea, and we have some specialized certifications like Demeter, Biosis, Naturland, all those kind of fair trade, all those kind of certifications we have. And below the slide, you can see the wholesale catalog of one of our major customers in USA. And on that catalog, the cover picture is one of our farmer with his family. So this is an important aspect. Almost all our customers or our companies are coming to India and coming to our places, and they are visiting our farmers field, and they are interacting with the farmers family, and there arises a bond between the consumers and the producers. Also the producers, the farmers who are from the rural villages, who are less educated, less privileged, these farmers are feeling very proud that a foreigner or an international buyer is coming to my farm and visiting my family and seeing my farming activities and all. So his level of self-esteem got elevated. And that is a, like we can say, a social aspect of this kind of activity. And these are the sustainable agriculture practices we are following. The regenerative practices we are following is based on three aspects: the soil health regeneration, water management, and biodiversity protection. So the regenerative farming practices led by the PDS farmers focused on managing soil biodiversity rather than soil fertility. These practices include soil fertility assessment using our own technicians and our own laboratory systems. And almost all our farmers, 99% of our farmers, they are following mixed crop cultivation. You can see at least 25 to 30 varieties of species of plants in their field. And of course, the farmers are avoiding the chemical fertilizers, and they are using quality organic inputs in order to ensure the authenticity of the supply chain. Then the farmers are ensuring maximum soil cover in order to protect the soil from the erosion and landslides, etc. And they are planting vetiver plants in order to save the soil from the erosion. Then we are providing a lot of capacity building programs, awareness and capacity building programs to the farmers. Then the farmers are using stone burns, gildy plucking, etc. to protect their land. Then water management. The water scarcity is very common in the hilly areas of this district, with the northern part is experiencing frequent droughts and rain shadow conditions. In recent years, the digging of wells and bore wells has led to a decline in groundwater level in our region. Also, the farmers are relying the monsoon for water. The monsoon is for almost 4 to 6 months here. The farmers are completely relying on this monsoon for their water. And the life cycle of the spices is completely depends on the seasonal climatic conditions. So these are the water management mechanisms our farmers are adopting in the farmers. First of all, in almost all the farms, they have installed the rainwater harvesting and water recharging mechanisms. Then with the help of some agencies, the PDS is implementing the watershed management mechanisms, and farmers are maintaining soil cover, then renovation of abundant water resources, then river conservation, water budgeting programs we are implementing in the field. Then the next is biodiversity protection. With the help of some international agencies, we are implementing a biodiversity action plan in the Western Ghat region. So the awareness programs and training capacity building programs are part of that. Then we have assessed and we have prepared a baseline record of soil microbe population in almost all our farmers' land. Then the farmers are protecting and enhancing the climate resilient local varieties. As I said, this is the birthplace of most of the spices like pepper, ginger, turmeric, etc. So we can see a variety of traditional and local varieties in this region. So our farmers are taking special care to preserve and protect these kind of climate resilient local and traditional varieties. Then they're promoting the pollinators and predators using the local plants. Then, of course, avoiding the use of chemical herbicides and pesticides. Then we can say that there are a lot of traditional knowledge about this biodiversity conservation and the climate smart agriculture practices. In almost all our trainings, there is a session is dedicated to share the knowledge, the traditional knowledge of the farmers among themselves. Then they are protecting the medicinal plants in the region. So these are the processing facility in our plant. You can see in the below picture, the plant is located on the very serene places away from all the pollutions. We have a state-of-the-art processing center which is dedicated to organic spices processing, and it is certified to the organic spices processing. And we have the latest cleaning, grading, sterilization facilities, and it is adhering to almost all the international food safety and hygiene standards as prescribed by the national law and our bias. And we have an internal quality assurance laboratory inside our facility. Then we have a soil, plant, and water testing laboratory for the farmers. There, the farmers can avail the soil, plant, and water testing as free of cost, and our technicians will give advices to the farmers in order to farming practices. You can see these are the some of the pictures of our processing facility, the sterilization system, the laboratory, the container bag, the loading area, etc. And this is our global reach. We are exporting to almost all parts of the world, like the USA, Europe, and African countries, the GCC, then Japan, Korea, Australia, etc. And this is our R&D division. As we know, in a country like India, lack of the farm extension system is one of the important challenges the farmers are facing. So in order to address this issue, we established a good farm extension system, and this R&D division and soil, plant, and water testing lab is part of that. There we have a good organic plant nursery. The farmers can purchase, or farmers can avail these seedlings, sometimes on free of cost, other times on cost-to-cost basis. They can purchase from there. Also, the soil, plant, and water testing laboratory, they can avail services on free of cost. And we have a compost making center there. And this is the training center. There we have a facility for the practical and theoretical training for the farmers. And these are some of the capacity building programs to make the traditional, the organic preparations, and some of the biodiversity awareness programs like that. You can see the photos of that. And this is the rainwater harvesting system in our processing facility. We are 100% water neutral in our operations. We are saving the water during the monsoon season, and we are using that for the other summer seasons for our operations. And we are issuing the soil testing and the soil health card to all our farmers after the testing in our laboratory. And you can see this is a model of the soil health card issued to one of our farmers. And this is another important aspect in our way of empowering the farmers, valuing and rewarding the ecosystem services by the organic farmers. We have identified and listed the major ecosystem services provided by the organic farmers in the region. That includes the carbon sequestration, water conservation and storage systems in their farms, then promoting pollinators using the flowering plants and traditional medicinal plants, then biodiversity enhancement, then soil microbe enhancement, then prevention of air water pollution, and safe and nutritional food they are providing to the customers, then regulation of agriculture's GHG emissions. So PDS Organic Spices is rewarding the farmers by paying an organic premium to the farmers. That means we are purchasing each and every kilogram of the spices by paying 10 to 15% of additional premium price than the market price. So the farmers are getting a sustainable income, and it's a rewarding system for the farmers. And these are some of the exclusive models our farmer group is following. First of all, we are reducing the carbon emission using efficient resource utilization. We are adopting modern technology in all our operations. Then we have done carbon sequestration analysis in almost all our farms. Then we have a pooled purchase system. As I said, the Idiki district or the area of operation is spread across more than 150 square kilometer of area. So a farmer, a small farmer from a far away region, if he wanted to bring the product from his farm to our factory, he has to hire a vehicle, and the cost also will be very high for him. So what we are doing is that we have a decentralized purchase system. We have unit officers in every nook and corner of the region. The farmers can bring their product up to the nearest unit offices. Our purchase team will go there and they will collect the materials. In that way, we can reduce the carbon footprint and the farmers can save the money for the transportation. Then the operations are water neutral and energy efficient. Then all the on-farm operations, purchase, storage, processing, and transportation, we are monitoring the carbon footprint, and as far as possible, we are confirming that the operations will be energy efficient and water neutral. Then another method, another model is eco-economization. That is transforming the ecological conservation activity to economic activity. And this is one of the examples of that eco-economization activity. This is a woman activity, a woman vetiver micro enterprise unit. We can see this kind of grass everywhere in the region. The grass is called vetiver. The farmers are traditionally using this to prevent the soil erosion. And the root of the plant is an Ayurvedic medicine, and that is using in the cosmetic industry. Actually, there were no particular use for this grass, but we found a use for this grass. We trained a group of 50 women from our farmers' family to make a basket, a vetiver basket like this, and we are purchasing this basket from these ladies, and we are incorporated that in our spices supply chain as a spice gift box. So now the ladies can use their free time to make this kind of basket, and that is an additional income for these ladies. Also, the farmers are more encouraged to plant this vetiver grass in their field so that they are getting an additional income through this ecological conservation activity. And this is another interesting program by the Pyramid Development Society. This is Land to Lab program. When we are thinking about innovation, it's always something invented in the laboratory or inside the classroom, and which is giving back or giving down to the field or to the small and marginal farmers. But this is a reverse approach. This is a bottom-up approach where we are considering the farmers as the best innovators. Our technicians are going to the field and they're identifying some of the innovations found by the farmers, and they are taking back to the lab, and they're just polishing it and giving back to the farmers with all the IPR and all the papers, so that the farmers can make that as micro enterprises. And these are some examples of that kind of farmer innovations. Like the first one is a pepper variety invented by Mr. Varghese. The second one is also another pepper variety. And the last one, you can see the coffee variety. Then we have nutmeg variety, cardamom varieties. Other than these plant varieties, we have some small-scale machineries and farm equipments like that. There were a lot of more than hundreds of innovations we have identified. So the specialty of this kind of program, the advantage is that the farmers are inventing or farmers are innovating as per their needs, which is really persistent in the region. So this is localized solution for the localized needs, and which are found to be very effective than something which is introduced in the farm from outside. And these are the awards and recognitions we got from various institutions. Like we were the topmost exporter of organic spices from India from 2002 to 2008. Then we have got the International Micro Entrepreneurship Award from Paris 2014. Then we have got the International Pepper Community Award from 2017. So as a conclusion, I would say these are the learnings we got through our operations for the last 25 years. First of all, the regenerative agriculture practices ensure the sustainability of the agroecological system, which lead to the revival of local agroeconomy and the quality of life for the farmer community. The second is well-established farm extension system ensure the integrity of the supply chain, organic supply chain. And the major success of the organization is its futuristic outlook and the ability to align with the global changes. So, big thank you from our smiling, beautiful farmer woman. Thank you.
Jacob, I just want to thank you for that and just talk about a few of the issues that you brought up. Now, one of the ones I found very inspiring is looking at the farmer developed varieties of pepper, the cardamom, the nutmeg, and the coffee. Now, for instance, you know, I grow all of these here. I was looking at some of the pepper and the size of the of the pods with all the pepper on it. The three varieties there are quite spectacular. Similarly, when I could see the nutmegs, I thought either they're very small farmers or they're big nutmegs. And I suppose what I like about it is what you're doing here is the way that we should be developing food crops, and it's not in a research station under a hothouse, but in the field, and farmers carefully selecting the best that are best adapted, the best quality. And so as a result now, are other farmers taking up these varieties now in Kerala and growing them and getting the good results?
Yes, of course. Actually, the thing is that in Kerala or in our area itself, the microclimatic conditions are totally different. So we can say most of the time the agriculture researchers are not considering this fact. They are just generalizing the agriculture system in their state or in the district, and they are just developing a variety which is suitable for the generic agriculture conditions. But the farmers know the real fact. They know the microclimatic conditions or micro agro systems in their particular region. So they are developing these kind of varieties based on that. So the nearby farmers, they are also getting benefited through this kind of innovations by these farmers. So now actually for the inventor, it is, we can say it's a micro enterprises. The other farmers can purchase this kind of plants, and it is a mutually benefited. It's a win-win situation for the purchaser and the enterprise. So other farmers, what the benefit is that is first of all, it's a climate resilient variety, and they are getting more yield than the institutional varieties. And the other guy who is selling is getting a fair income through this activity. So it's a win-win situation for both of the farmers.
To me, that's a wonderful story. It's also the way that we should be developing it. What we have found all around the world is that by using these, developing these varieties locally, they're better adapted, not just to the climate, to the soil, to organic agriculture. They can take weed pressure, whereas the commercial varieties, they are developed to need high amounts of water, high amounts of water-soluble fertilizers, and they need high amounts of pesticides because they've got no resistance to pests and diseases. So the only way that you get a yield off them is by spending a fortune on mostly toxic inputs. Whereas we find with these varieties, they've been developed on organic farms to thrive in organic conditions. And that's why they are so superior and why they do well in organic farms.
In India, what is happening is that let me just add to one more point. In India, what is happening is that the institutions are mainly focused on this kind of the nutritional input, very high input intensive varieties, which needs a lot of inputs from outside. But the farmers, they are feeling that they have been practicing this organic farming for last 30, 35 years. And in their observations, they are saying, they are feeling that there are some varieties, especially the pepper, which are automatically evolved such that they are adjust to the organic way of farming, automatically adjust to the organic way of farming. We can say that is a natural selection, and which are more adapted to the organic method of farming. And we are planning to invest more to document this kind of organically adapted plants. And that's also another interesting point.
I'm pleased to hear this, because the other part of the story with the commercial varieties that need high amounts of inputs is that the farmers normally have to borrow money for that, and they borrow it from really loan sharks at very high amounts. And usually because they can't afford the cost of getting the amount of pesticides and fertilizers they need, they never get enough. And their yields are always low. Plus, so at the end of the season, they don't get the same yield, they don't get the same price, but what they have is the debt, and that keeps them in poverty. Whereas what you're doing, the farmers don't need to go into debt for these high inputs. So they get a better return, not just in yield, but in income.
Right.
So just like
also through the
please.
Also through our support system, also through our support system and our farm extension system, we are giving good quality organic inputs like the compost, our traditional micro fertilizers, organic micro fertilizers, and some of our traditional preparations like the Panchagavya, Jivamrita, Harita Kashayam, etc. So we have a research and development division. They are developing this, and they are giving the farmers on cost-to-cost basis. So, and once in a year, we are giving us free of cost. So, other than the monetary benefit, this is also we can say a rewarding mechanism to the farmers, not monetary rewarding mechanism to the farmers, so that the farmers can highly reduce the input cost, and whatever money they are getting, that will become a sustainable income or a saving for these farmers. Whereas the conventional farmers, if they found some disease or something, they have to always run to the nearest chemical shop, and they have to get the advice from the seller, the chemical pesticide seller, and they have to buy that, they have to apply that. It's all there. But for us, what is happening is that we have an ICS system, internal control system. We have 14 member staff is there. They're always there in the field with the farmers. And these staffs are always approachable to the farmers, and they are giving regular advices, and they are regularly monitoring the farmers' field. And if there is some issue, they can immediately contact our internal control manager or internal control staff, and they will directly contact the technicians in our factory or our office, and they will give the immediate remedy to these farmers. So in a way, the farmers is more efficient, and farmers can reduce time and cost of the farming.
The other part of what your program that I was really impressed with is the payment for ecosystem services, and that includes carbon dioxide drawdown, but also for biodiversity, for water management, for soil health. I really like the criteria that you use. So if you could just talk a little bit about that and explain that, because I think for us and Regeneration International, this is actually one area that we actually want to turn into a larger project, is having farmers paid a premium for ecosystem services, and you're doing it, which is very impressive.
Yeah. So first of all, it is a biodiversity conservation. It is not only the interspecies biodiversity the farmers are protecting, it's also the interspecies biodiversity. As I said, this is a birthplace of some of the most important spices like pepper and cardamom. There are a lot of indigenous or local varieties of plants are there. The farmers are taking special care to protect this kind of locally adapted variety along with the high yielding variety. So if you are going to a farmer's field, in the pepper variety itself, you can see at least 5 or 6 varieties of pepper, different kinds of pepper in one farm. And that's the same case with all the other spices like whether it be nutmeg or cardamom or turmeric or any other spices. And also we can see some coffee or some tea trees and coconut, some vegetables for their own consumption like that. You can see at least 30-35 varieties of species in one farm, including large trees to small bushes, including medicinal plants, the vetiver plants, etc. So we are giving prime importance to this kind of things, and we are giving awareness programs to the farmers. And also about the carbon sequestration, we have estimated the carbon sequestration in almost all our farmers field using the modern tools, and we have estimated that on an average it is estimated that 120 to 150 metric ton of carbon is sequestered above the soil and 30 to 35 metric ton under the soil in each of the farms. Also, we have assessed the soil microbes population in our farmers field, and it is found that the soil microbe population and organic carbon content, when we are comparing to the nearby conventional farm, it is very high in the organic farm. So these are the kind of services. Also, as I said, this area is one of the ecologically fragile area and most important biodiversity hotspot in the region. So the conservation of pure air and water is utmost important in this region, and our farmers are giving prime importance, and they are contributing very high to in this aspect, preserving the fresh air and water compared to the other chemical farmers. There are some belts in our region, some particular pockets in our region where some spices like cardamom or some other kind of spices are cultivating. If you are just walking through the farms, we can see that our skin and our eyes are just getting a burnt, like a burning effect, because they are applying the pesticides and there are a huge amount of pesticide content in that atmosphere. Whereas when we are going to our farmers, our organic farmers field, we can see that there's a cool air and fresh air, and water is also very fresh. This is all we can really experience. So these are the kind of services our farmers are giving, and we are giving monetary and non-monetary rewarding. Monetary rewarding means we are giving the premium price that is always 10 to 15% above the market price. As you know, the prices of the spices are highly fluctuating throughout the year. For example, for pepper, right now the price is 600 Indian rupees. But before last year, the same time, the price was just 400 Indian rupees. So we cannot predict tomorrow what will be the price. So throughout the year, what we are doing is that we are ensuring a benchmark price, a minimum price for the farmers. Whatever low be the price, we will give that price, and whatever high be the price, we will give that high price plus premium, so that there's a security. Always there's a security, a price security for the farmers, so that they can relay the agriculture for their needs, their children needs, or their family needs, etc. And non-monetary benefits we are giving is the training activity, the agriculture extension activity, and this kind of good agriculture inputs, organic inputs we are giving to the farmers. Also, the farmers can buy the seedlings, the spices seedlings on coast-to-coast basis. These are all non-monetary benefits we are giving to the farmers. Okay.
Yeah. Jacob, I actually want to thank you for this because what you're doing is very important. You know, at the moment, for instance, we have places like the Netherlands trying to close down farming because of climate change. Places like New Zealand and Ireland and other places, everybody's starting to tax farmers. And, you know, we have very good data that farming is responsible between 30 to up to 50% of greenhouse gas emissions. What you're showing is that we can actually be greenhouse gas negative by actually drawing down the greenhouse gases. The other really important thing is that agriculture is actually responsible for something like 80% of deforestation, most of the biodiversity loss on the planet. And you're showing that you can regenerate this biodiversity. And the last point I really want to make is this. It's people say, oh, you know, we've got to have less farmers. We can't have smallholder farmers are not viable. You know, we can't have ecological outcomes and farming outcomes. And you're saying, yes, we can. And not only that, we can actually provide better incomes for farmers, their communities, revitalize them, bring life back, you know, make sure these people have a good standard of living. So for me, your story is such an important one, and that's why, you know, I really want to have this highlighted in our People Summit. So it's not just in Kerala, but other farmer groups can see what you're doing and you can inspire the world. So I want to say thank you, and actually look forward to returning to Kerala and visiting your farms.
Yeah, thank you, Andre. You're most welcome. You're most welcome to our farms.
Okay, well, thank you, and I look forward to being in contact.